Now attempting the paper, it is a very tricky thing, but rule of thumb is that you should attempt 85 to 90 questions. If you're doing less than that, you are reducing the chances, you are under attempting. If you're doing more than that, you are over attempting. The paper has to be solved in 3 iterations. In the first iteration, you will do 3 things. You will mark the question that you are 100% sure of, right? You will strike off those questions that you are just not sure of. The question paper looks something like this. This is Hindi part. This is English part. This is question number 1. This is question number 2. This is question number 3, 4, 5. You read question number 1, you are absolutely unsure of it. Just strike it out. Never to be seen again during the exam. You are sure of question number 2, mark B. You are sure, mark C. You were not sure of this, you were 50% sure between 2 answers like B or C. So you mark B and C and you mark doubt left. That is how I did it during the exam. And you are sure, mark this. You are sure of this, mark the question. So you do these 3 things in the first iteration. The first iteration has to be completed by 75 minutes. And in that, 45 to 55 questions have to be attempted with 100% surety. But like I mentioned, you have to go to 85 to 90 questions for an optimum attempt. Okay, so how you get from here to here? In the second iteration, you attempt these questions. And if you do enough number of test series, you'll develop a knack to recognize which question you are sure of with more certainty, with more probability, like 70-30% surety, 60-40% surety, 50-50% surety, that kind of thing. So you will develop a knack for this. This is not an exact science, but it happens with every candidate who solves enough number of test papers. So you go for these kind of questions first. You solve 25 to 30 of these questions and you can do a probabilistic analysis. You realize that you are very much likely to end up with positive 20 to 30 marks. And that is what the difference is between a person scoring 92 marks in prelims or 140 marks in prelims. Developing a knack to do these things properly and developing a big knowledge base to at least have 45 to 55 questions of 100% surety. If you have 30 questions of 100% surety and you do 65 questions like this or 55 questions like this, you are putting yourself at a high risk of negative marking. It can happen that it might go wrong because you are attempting more questions with this probability, 50% probability or something like that. So you are more likely to get negative marking in this scenario. And in the third iteration, if need arises, you should get yourself to 85 to 90 questions. Second iteration will take you about 30 minutes. So from 75 to 35, you get to about 110 minutes. And in the last 10 minutes, you will do the third iteration if need be. Elimination is a very important technique that you have to develop, and that is what will enable you to get from 55 questions to 85 questions. Now, how do you do the elimination? First of all is that you read the question very carefully. If there is something that is tricky, then it should immediately attract your attention. How you do it? By reading one point and cross-checking the options. Suppose if one point is wrong and the question is like statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, which statement is correct? 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, and question 2, statement 2 is wrong, and all the options have statement 2. Then you have immediately, by knowing that one statement is wrong, narrowed down to the correct answer. That is how you do elimination sometimes. Sometimes internal consistency has to be checked between the options. So for example, 1, 2 is correct, 2, 3 is correct, 1, 2, if 1, 2 is correct, 1 and 2 are correct, 3 cannot be correct. If 1 is correct, 2 cannot be correct. That kind of thing happens and it helps you. Sometimes you can correlate current affairs with your static knowledge. For example, once a question came that lions were being relocated to a protected area, and 3 of the options that were given were tiger reserves. So even if you don't know the correct factual information, even if you miss the current affairs news, you can immediately recognize that lions and tigers don't live in the same area. They are keystone species and apex predators. They do not live in the same area. Very exceptionally, they might be found somewhere in the world, but they do not live in the same area. So by using that logic, you could have eliminated the 3 options which incidentally in that question by design were tiger reserves, and everybody is supposed to know what the tiger reserves are. Then you should keep an eye out for extreme statements, like statements which have words like only, this thing happens only, this thing happens always, drastically, or completely, or all. These things are generally wrong. Similarly, you should keep an eye out for generalistic statements in science, because suppose you should realize that the people who are framing the papers are generalists. They are not subject domain experts. In all chances, while they were framing the question, some research paper might have suggested that XYZ technology can be used for ABC purpose. Some research paper might have been suggesting so, even though it might not be the mainstream purpose for XYZ technology. But if a research paper has suggested something like that, then the person who is framing the question cannot deny that. So your answer to a generalistic statement will be correct, that ABC technology can be used for XYZ purpose. Common mistakes that happen during attempting the paper is that people tend to misread incorrect or correct keyword in the question paper, and they mark the incorrect option while the correct option was asked. So what I did was, whenever I came across such a question, I ensured that I wrote true, false, 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 these kind of things in front of the statements that I was supposed to judge. Do not do this thing. Why? Because if the keyword is which of the following statements are incorrect, in your brain it might mean that this is the correct option or this is the correct statement. And if this is the keyword, these two, correct option or correct statement, are two different things. So I did not rely on this thing. I did this thing, true, false. Whenever I came across such a word, I did this thing, and before selecting my answer, review the keyword again. True means the statement is correct. There is no ambiguous interpretation that can happen in your brain. Now coming to the point of filling the bubbles simultaneously or in intervals. I have adopted the strategy that keep a pencil in your hand, fill the bubbles with the pencil. Keep a pencil in your hand, fill the bubbles with the pencil, not with the pen. Do something like that with the pencil. Okay. Why? Because sometimes it happens that you may have been sure that option B is the answer, but some smidgen of doubt is there in your memory. And when you get to question number, this was question number 10 for example, when you get to question number 70, something hits in your brain and you recall that no, this was not the answer. This was the answer. But if you are using a pen in the first iteration in the get-go, there is nothing that you can do now. Do not use a whitener. Do not use a whitener. Okay. So keep a pencil in your hand and keep marking questions to which you are 100% sure of in the first iteration with pencil. After the first iteration, give your brain a 3-4 minute break. Pick up the black pen and darken these circles. First, mark simultaneously while solving the question with the pencil in the first iteration. Secondly, after the first iteration, give yourself a 3-4 minute break, consume sugar and mark these with the pen. Another reason why I said so, because sometimes you might not have been sure of a question, or you might have been 99% sure but not 100% sure, but you still marked it. And somewhere down the line, another question on that topic appeared and it clicked in your brain that, oh no, the answer to this question, which I was almost certain but not quite, but not 100%, was not this thing but this thing. Some new question triggered something in your brain regarding that. But if you have already marked it with a pen, then there is nothing you can do. So don't mark with a pen in the first iteration. Mark with a pencil, and after the first iteration, give your brain a break. Mark encircle the bubbles with a pen. But in the second, third iteration, use the pen right away. You won't have the time otherwise. Then, if you are attempting the paper, the common mistakes that you should avoid is that sometimes people tend to take a lot of pressure regarding the prelims. And if 7 to 8 questions in the starting are peculiar ones, they could not attempt them, they could not figure them out, they panic that, oh no, I'm supposed to leave only 15 questions at max unattempted, and these 7 questions have already happened in the first 7 questions or first 10 questions. 7 questions are the one that I am striking out, never to be seen again in the paper. Definitely my paper is going. Do not do this thing. Keep your psychological balance in the exam. If this thing is happening and you are not able to cope up with it, turn the page, go to question number 100, start attempting from the behind. Why? This will enable you to gain the confidence back that you might have started to lose. Turn the page, go to question number 50, start attempting. Okay. Do not ever try new things in the exam. The things that you have done in the test series, the things that have worked for you, the things that you can count on, the things that you have used as part of your strategy, only do those things in the exam. Never ever try new things in the exam. Do not over attempt. Do not go for glory. Do not go for imaginary cutoffs, thinking that the paper is very easy, cutoff is going to go very high, so I should over attempt. No. You should attempt 85 to 90 questions, but you should attempt them in the strategy that I discussed. If you are not sure, then you have to have done more practice. But do not think that the cutoff is going to go very high. Do what you want to do what you are capable of doing in the exam. Do not define your attempt by what other people might be doing in the exam. That is all I have to say about this.